Today in the gospel, we hear Jesus say, "When you lift up the Son of Man, you will come to know who he is." So many years ago, I was working with our provincial theater company called Blackfriars Repertory Theater. In those days, every year, we would put on a passion play. And this particular year, we were in a parish in Mamaroneck, New York. And it was the first time that we had done this particular passion play, and we needed to devise a way to actually enact the crucifixion, which is the high point of any passion play. And so the technical director, who was my friend Tom, came up with an ingenious idea. So he took two beams of wood, the longer one was maybe about 7 feet tall, and he designed them in such a way that they could be affixed together like a cross. But then they needed to be retrofitted so that the actor playing Jesus could actually get on the cross, and that the cross could be then moved upright for the moment of the crucifixion. So how to do this? So Tom devised a kind of, as I say, an ingenious method. So there was a little shelf that was attached to the cross at the foot level. So the actor would actually stand on this little ledge that was built right into the cross. And where his hands would be nailed to the horizontal beam, he simply put a piece of rope that was in the form of a loop that went through each side of the cross, so that very discreetly the actor could place his hands behind these loops, and you couldn't even tell that there was rope there because it was painted the same color as the cross. But then, still the problem of how to make the cross go upright and to stay upright for a while with an actor on it. So Tom came up with a very simple but an ingenious, again, idea, which was simply to attach to the bottom of the cross a piece of wood, like a foot, that turned the cross into the shape of an L. And then through leverage, the other actors would gather on the cross and put their weight on this extending piece, and then the cross would just naturally come up, and it would actually be pretty stable for a while. The other actors would have to hold it in place, but it was very effective. So Tom had a little daughter who was about 6 years old at the time. She knew her father was designing this. She understood that it was all make-believe. She knew that the man that was going to play Jesus on the cross was just an actor and that he was not going to get hurt. She actually saw her father constructing this stage device, and she was there that day when Tom put the whole thing together and the actors gathered around it to give a trial run. But here's what happened. The moment that the cross went from the floor to the upright position, this little girl burst into tears. And I'll tell you something. I want to be that little girl. Because mystery overwhelmed her. And that's the best way to live these days leading up to Holy Week, and these days that feel like such a crucifixion. Even though her mind told her so many things, the power of heaven came bursting through in that symbol, unlike any symbol, of the crucified Christ lifted up on the cross. And if we could just have that simplicity of heart that that little girl had, how it would heal us and give us the peace and the solace, but even more, the confidence and the certainty that we need right now when it seems that God is so distant. One of my heroes, Monsignor Robert Hugh Benson, who wrote beautiful spiritual books as well as novels, says that it is Jesus who's lifted up in the shame of being beaten in his humanity that draws us to himself. And one of the best ways that we can prepare for Palm Sunday and for Holy Week, which is coming in just a few days, is very simply to show other people our crucifixions. to show them our vulnerability. Because we think it's going to repel people, but instead it might move them to tears like that little girl, and it might be just the thing that they need to start believing in a true and intense way in the mystery. There's a story from World War II. In the concentration camp in Auschwitz, there was a Polish officer, Lieutenant Stefan Jasnewski, who was incarcerated in cell block 11, where St. Maximilian Kolbe was, right around the corner, in cell number 21. And as he was awaiting his execution, what did this man do? Into the plaster of the wall, probably with his fingernail, he etched an absolutely beautiful little crucifixion. Of all of the things he could have etched into that wall, why did he want this symbol of torture and of gruesome death? Because it was what he needed to be able to face his own death, filled with tremendous hope. And we can be that living crucifix for other people by just sharing our sufferings, our vulnerability, our weakness, and our need, our affliction with other people. Jesus says, when I am lifted up, and St. Catherine of Siena, the great Dominican mystic and doctor of the church, says, why does Jesus say this? Why? And she replies, he says it so that we will run to the cross. God bless you.